Jax was in love, but he didn't even know it. All Jax knew was his feeling of loneliness he had after a certain adventure. A few days ago, the digital circus had an adventure that for the first time put him in the position of the damsel in distress. The adventure was simply called Paranoia. But after the letters had appeared behind Kane, all he did was smile. He didn't explain anything, just floated there, menacingly. As the others stared at him, both confused and intimidated. Kane? Asked Pomni. What does this mean? Kay's eyes shot towards the jester, quickly flying around her before returning to his mouth. It means that! And with that he teleported away. Huh. Well, this is boring, grumbled Zubul as she already was on her way outside. Though Ragatha quickly pulled her back to the group. Guys, think. Kane usually has an over-exaggerated explanation of the adventure. This time he didn't. A change in pattern is always important to notice. Her and Pomni were the only ones who were really worried here. Remember, we can't die in the circus, sighed Jax. Keep a cool head. Everything will be fine. It was therefore ironic, really, that the carefree bunnyman was the first one to just vanish from the group. Though it took everyone quite a while to figure out how it happened. And if it wasn't for Jax's charm, it probably would have taken longer. As he had been taken by you. An NPC villain created by Kane himself. A tall, lanky humanoid with only a hint of a feminine body beneath a tight, red hooded costume. You had long arms that reached down to your knees, with long, vicious nails coming out of your fingertips. Your eyes were glowing in a scary red, and your face, all but human, was covered by a white Scaramouche mask. You had a special ability. You could enter mirrors, like through an open window. And you could kidnap characters into the mirror world. Inside the mirror, everything was at a grayscale, a reflection of whichever room the mirror was positioned in. And so you had decided to make Jax your first victim. As the bunnyman foolishly had walked past one of them, as the others were discussing a plan on how to attack the adventure. You were wrapping a rope tightly around the confused and stunned bunnyman. It wasn't always that he was pulled into a creepy grey mirror world. The only thing that had any color here was himself and you. He grunted as air was pressed out of his lungs. Hey, he coughed. Much for the merchandise, he chuckled. In response, you pulled the rope tighter. Okay. At least give me enough air to not pass out. God damn it. You narrowed your eyes, finally making a neat little bow to finish up his constriction. Jack sighed as he just lied there, unable to move. This was embarrassing. Almost cautiously, he looked around himself. You did quite a number on him. His head hurt, and any wiggling with his arms only hurt him more. He recognized the world around him, especially when his eyes shot towards the mirror leading into the normal digital world. Well, as normal as it got. As his eyes were instinctively searching for anything with colors. Grunting, he rolled on his chest, wiggling forward like a worm. God, how pathetic he was. But just as all he had to do was get up somehow and jump forward into the mirror, you stepped in from somewhere behind his peripheral. Without any noise, like a ghost, to stop his progress. You raised a finger and wiggled it to signal a smug no. Oh, come on. You could at least tell me what's going on. You knelt down next to him, grabbing him by one of his ears, making his entire body shook. And you whispered, "I'm paranoia." You whispered, "I've been created by Cain as today's entertainment." Well, I'm not really entertained right now, he growled. Oh, this isn't about your entertainment. Nonchalantly, you pulled at his ear, making him squirm in pain. His teeth clenched so hard he'd swear they'd crack. No one had ever dared to pull at his ears, and to his great shame, he could feel his body going limp. Like a female rabbit getting ready to mate. He hissed angrily at his shameful display. It was so humiliating. Thankfully, you finally let go of his ears, leading him to sigh in relief. But as he rolled on his back to look at you, he only saw you lean down to grab him by the ankles, pulling him further into the mirror realm. No, he coughed. The bunny kicked and fought against your tight grip. He needed to stay close to the mirror for there to be any hope of escape. At least this way the others could see him. Or well, that's what he hypothesized. But as you slammed him against the wall, he knew that that was out of the question. Again you pulled his ears. Who shall I take next, silly rabbit? Jax knew that you'd be pulling some psycho shit on him. Whoever's name he said you wouldn't take. So who would be the best to stay with whoever would then be left? Ragatha, he barked. Offended at his ruse, you took a step back. You saw right through him. No one in their right mind would choose the most capable character of getting out of the situation to be taken first. After shaking your head, you cooed and replied, "As you wish." Skipping like a child, you left the purple bunny behind. It was an hour later when you returned with the packaged up Ragatha. You had wrapped ropes tightly around her ankles, wrists, and neck, attaching the ropes to a big, heavy wooden cross. The doll complained, finding it very condescending, as you lifted her up onto the ceiling, letting her hang from above, like a marionette. From there, she saw the bound Jax. "Oh, there you are!" And Jax laughed in response. "Hey! Hanging around, aren't we?" Ragatha puffed up her cheeks. "What is this freaky thing? And why doesn't it talk?" Jax laughed. He watched you climbing around in her robes like a ghost. She didn't even notice your movements. That's how light and silent you were. The Ragatha finally noticed your presence as your fingers dug into her shoulders. This is only the beginning. you whispered. But Ragatha just stared, horrified. She was so scared. She couldn't believe that Jax could see the situation so lax, especially since he was the first one to be taken by this thing that was you. It was much later. By now everyone had been taken. Gangle, Zubul, Kinger, everyone. Except for Pomni. The jester was running around screaming for help, but she was running too fast. The jester by now had noticed your presence in the mirrors, and she kept her distance from them. As she tried to figure out the rules of what counted as a mirror you could appear in, and what didn't. Even though it was quite simple. Angrily you stopped your pursuit as the jester ran into a mirrorless room. Furious, you had returned to Jax. You're getting sick of hearing the characters argue among each other. It had given you a headache. So you had spread them around the circus's mirror worlds. You understood the foolishness of that, but hey. There had to be some way how the characters could win this adventure, right? But either way, Jax had become your main target. He was too much fun to interact with, to toy with, as he tried so desperately to be smug. Hey there, he hummed as you crawled down from the wall like a spider, staring right into his eyes. Missed me? You somersaulted off the wall right in front of his feet. He was still completely taken aback by your 100% silent movements. Not even the cloth of your clothing made any sound. How do I get the jester? You demanded angrily, furiously even. Seriously? You have trouble with Pomni? He grunted. She's a slippery one. And she figured it all out. By it, you mean how this adventure works. He rolled his eyes. Well, Pomni is a little twitchy, isn't she? At some point, she'll almost crack, but that's when she more or less accidentally starts doing exactly what she should be doing to begin with. So, you kinda lost here. Jax smiled. You know, I didn't think she had it in her, but it seems like you just lost simply by selecting the wrong people to target first. Well, your losing was sort of the point, but you had hoped to at least be outsmarted by one of your captives. This was a little disappointing. Though, Jax's words angered you even more. And once again you gripped his ears tightly. He moaned, and you immediately retreated your hand. With a loud thud, he landed on the ground. Shocked, you looked at him. There was something about the limbless feeling that he liked, and you constantly tugging on him had made him like it even more. Come on. At least drop me gently. God damn. What was that noise? You hissed, and he smirked as he rolled on his back, looking up at you. I guess I just like being manhandled by you. Your eyes twitched in disgust and disdain. You're trying to take the fun out of this, bunny, aren't you? Well, I'll show you. It was about an hour later when Pomni and the others entered the room you and Jax were in. She had managed to free every single one of them. Though Nobody expected this. You build up to your maximum size on top of an unclothed Jax. Your painful claws dragging over him, making him wince, moan, and whine at every bit of pleasured pain you delivered. You were enjoying all of his reactions, the little twitches, the little hums, the little curses that were censored by the digital circus. They all pleased you. They made your heart jump at every gasp, though the others were horrified. They couldn't see the magic of this little encounter. "Okay, Jax, should we come back in a bit?" asked Ragatha, annoyed. "Seems like you were having fun," grunted Zubal, as you hissed, looking at them, before scuttling away in utter embarrassment, your cheeks practically glowing with humiliation. Something you had never felt before was stirring within you. "Come on, guys," huffed Jax as he reached for his overall. "Guys!" But the others had already left the room, annoyed and disgusted. "Guys!" With a leg in his pants, he jumped after them. Well. At least the feast afterwards had been amazing. Though it had been overshadowed by a single issue that Kane almost failed to mention. He himself had no access to the mirror world unless he was taken there by you. And unless you left it while he was around, he could not delete you. And just simply getting rid of all mirrors inside the digital circus was a no-no, especially because hanging up any new mirrors probably would attract you again. Well. With the adventure done, there was no reason for you to actually be malicious. Maybe it would be a little bit of fun. And what fun it would be. Over the next few days, every character reported seeing you in the corner of reflections, reported your quiet whispers. Oh, it was amazing fun for you. Without the pressure of actually having to capture them in accordance to the adventure, and without the threat of being deleted, you had a freedom you didn't think possible. But Jax was hearing nothing of it. He felt as if everyone was making fun of him for what happened with you and him, and he refused to acknowledge any sighting of you he had himself in a mirror. Though, secretly, he had been collecting. The Bunnyman had taken a few of the mirrors lying around in the digital circus, and when no one was looking, he'd deposit them somewhere in his room. This feeling he had was egging him on, to bait you out of hiding, to see you again, fully, to feel you again, fully. If he knew this feeling was a simple crush, he probably would have stopped himself from pursuing this. But he didn't. He fought himself above these kind of feelings. He was lying in his bed, eyes focused on one of them. He stared at his reflection intently. And that's when, from the shadow behind him, he caught minor movements. His eyes widened, neck hairs standing up. As before, without making a single noise, you seemed to just appear, lying behind him, placing your head gingerly on his shoulder, almost playfully. Your long Scaramouche mask just barely poking past his cone of vision. "I have missed you. You whispered. Jax gulped, his eyes unintentionally widening. You slid a finger on his chin. Your white skin felt ice cold against his warm fur. He didn't feel your weight on him, but he could feel your presence. He knew you were nestled against him, and that made him blush. Why are you toying with me, Paranoia? You're the only prey who accepts it. The bunny exhaled lustfully, as your other hand pushed underneath him. He could see a hand emerge from under his hip, taking hold of his chest, rubbing soft circles into him. I couldn't stay away for too long, could I? My precious prey, my lovely prey. He forced a smirk. Seeing it in his reflection, you pinched him with your nails. You must be a fan of me. But I haven't even seen your face yet. He huffed. Your nails burrowed into his fur, making him wince in pain. But you didn't respond with words. But your reaction was everything he needed to know. He narrowed his eyes with the smuggest of grins. Finally, he found an opening to attack you with. Come on, show me, he taunted. He ignored your exploring, digging, scratching claws, refusing to show any reaction you could identify as pleasurable. You leaned further onto his body, using the arm you had draped beneath him to pull at the nose of the Scaramouche mask. With bated breaths, the bunnyman lied there. But as you pulled it off, he couldn't make out your face. The red hood of your costume shadowed your entire face, except for your lower jaws, while your other hand was combing over his ears, making him shiver. Ever since you pulled at them, they'd become so sensitive to sound and touch alike. Luckily, no one had noticed a slight change in demeanor. But as they watched you throw the mask to the ground, you felt a slight difference in your touches. They had become more gentle. Your claws less painful, and your presence less threatening. He gasped when he heard a sudden loud click. But as he looked down, you had just undone one of his hooks of his overall. You really were a pervert, weren't you? Not that he minded it. If anything, it made him feel like the two of you were kindred spirits. Once the second button was unhooked and his overalls pulled down to his hip, he finally took the opportunity that he had waited for so long. With his entire weight, he threw himself against you. A gasp escaped your mouth, probably the loudest noise you had ever produced. And finally, he took charge. Your long hands were held together by his fist while he straddled you, his knees pressing together against your hip, making you gasp. The bunny pushed his face against your ear. How does it feel, Paranoia? He pulled away with an almost evil grin as he stared down at your helpless form. He finally could make out your face too. As it turns out, the red glowing orbs were merely the center of what were two big, beautiful eyes. Your face was painted black around them, like someone had crudely drawn a villain mask on your face. Your skin, however, as white as snow. He could see how soft it was, even in the darkness of his room. Almost like the face of a young teen. With his free hand, he rubbed against your cheek with a confident smirk. What did you just call me? Prey? God, you had such beautiful lips. He only now noticed that. They were red, like lipstick. But when he seductively moved his thumb over them, it didn't smear. This was just their natural color. Your teeth were sharp, but he noticed that before. Not that he minded that. So, tell me, who's the prey now? Of course, you were still an NPC. You weren't programmed with too much brain. So even in this exposed position, even as you could feel his warm, slender body push you down, even as his free hand was slowly dragging down the zipper of your costume, you couldn't comprehend anything but seeing him as your prey. You are, he smirked. Do you want to know what I see? You wanted to grunt. That's irrelevant. However, one of his fingers pressed down your lips, preventing you from speaking. I see a little thing, alive only because it's been forgotten by its master. But now I have the grip around you. And you will do as I say. Okay. Slowly, carefully, he let go of your wrists, making sure to keep enough pressure on you so you wouldn't immediately fight for control. He took hold of the two sides of your costume, opening it up. You shivered as the cold air danced across your naked skin. Oh, I'm going to enjoy this. He hushed as he pressed his lips on yours, his hot breath cascading down your face as you were helpless against his raw dominance. Or maybe you weren't so helpless. Maybe, just maybe, you wanted this.
Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive.